If we want to go ahead, of course, we have to recognize men's need in the process, and equality has two phases. Equality is not presented only in the faces aspect or perspective, but men's as well. Examples of the South, when we worked with John McDonald is there, and when we worked together on men's health around the world, and the introduction, Wilkins brings back the question about the limitation in the development of work. It's because of this vision. The vision that vision is only from the women's perspective, and the perspective of man is secondary. We don't have to deal with that. That's a limitation we have. Unfortunately, we are going forward in many areas, but we still have a work to do to justify the relevance of what we are doing. And the other aspect which is important to bring forth is to have a constructivist perspective to see how we were constructed as man, as woman, and to avoid the traps of essentialism that is in our hormones, the right side of the brain, left side of the brain, I don't know, and very often some uses for male studies with an anti-feminist perspective used as a basis to go back to the old model and medical model. I don't want to criticize physicians. It's interesting to work with that, but it deserves multidisciplinary approaches and get out of this medical approach looking only at the medical vision or the technical medical aspect when we talk about men. Everything is not only about erectile dysfunctions. Another important point to remember is to focus on the strength. Men don't have only issues, they have strengths. John McDonald talked about it as well. Another also, the positive approach, or we can use other words, but to avoid taking for granted what we have developed. Often we say things, important things. I'll try to speed up. We take for granted that things are stereotyped or set in concrete. Of course, men don't ask much for help, but some do ask for help. So let's see what changes, how it is transformed, not taking things for granted, because it can be dangerous. I have two examples in mind. Remember in Quebec, there was a book, Parentant Fils Manqué, by Gilles Tremblay, the importance of fathers, not only in mothers, for the construct of sons. The absent father, this image of absent father, we have to remove this image from a very strong studies. We said that workers need to think that the father is important. We have to be concerned about the father. It's not an invisible person. When we start from negative perspectives, we lose things. And when we start from positive points, asking for help is a strong point. So we base ourselves on strong issues to make things stronger and more. One man can is also seen as a very strong point. We have to focus on what is different and what goes well. The trend is to impose our Western trends. That surprised me when I toured different countries, when we use the theory of Connell in a really uniform way. Even if we say it can be adapted to different environments, sometimes we use it as a set model, but fundamentally each culture, each society, each way of seeing things, even in our own culture in subgroups, can differ. And very often what is clear, I don't think that as a model, there's one size fits all. There's no one size fits all. It's an expression we use here in Quebec as well. It is very important in interculture action. I use images of different culture. Our Inuit people we have the chance to work with. Unfortunately, 5 minutes to go. Okay. And most of the research we have done, often these researches were done in Western countries. They have been the most published, especially in the U.S., and also countries producing knowledge. I have to thank our American colleagues for their excellent work, but also we have a strong influence from the English culture because much is published in English. We also publish in English, but very often we miss important parts. What struck me in Guadalajara in 2006, interesting and very rich things are done in Latin America. But since it's written in Spanish, I don't read Spanish, I didn't know that before. They didn't know what was done in Quebec. So our realities are close. We often refer to the same model. We think that this model fits everyone. It has to be different as well. So it's important to see the contribution of these models. So to support diversity, it is important to see that diversity men. They have to remember that they are not one group. When we did a research in the monography of men's health with Richard Cloutier, there are more difference in men's health between different groups of men than groups of women. And realities between men and women are very close. We focus on differences that are not there. Well, what is important is diversity. And also what we have to see, Christine talked about it in her presentation, and Danielle talked about it also. We are evolving a postmodern society. What's important is that we inherit things from the past that are still present in our patriarchal society. It doesn't exist much now. It is interesting when we look at these issues. In this era of the global village, we see events in Egypt. We couldn't believe it. In Tunisia, all the importance of the global village we're living in now. The whole influence of media, the internet, social networks, the great influence they have in the development of things. We have an important influence. People multiply. Our realities are more and more diverse. It's a mosaic of cultures in our own respective country. So it is important in this postmodern era not to lose sight these changes. And what we say are concern only specific people. Diversity is the most important thing. So to go ahead, we have to find ourselves forms to meet. Campanadas is a person who worked on interculture action, the space to meet the other. According to me, I would say interculture action is basically we need to want to take action, want to go and meet the other as this person is as a human being, whether it is a man or woman. In this meeting with the other as a human being, we will be able to go forward. Jones, and by the way, said that in the feminist movement it was important what led to Beijing agreements, the feminists from the north and from the south, developing and developed countries. It allowed a different vision. And men as partners, men as partners in the research for equality from men from the south and from the north. And they focus on the importance of being together globally. Yes? So meeting the other in a process of co-creation. So as an international network, this is what we have to do in our meeting, in our project, to develop something that is larger. You know what we live. I think that creating together, Masculinity Society, this team, we don't want to be the leader or have the leadership together. We should create something that is interesting and important. We don't have one truth. There are several truths. And these new truths we will co-create together. That will be important in this process. That means that together, men and women, we will work together. We'll about half and half in this form here. And we will need to take into account studies on transgenders and transsexuals. Between South and North, youngsters and older people. We have young people with us. Diversity of ethnic communities, sexual diversities. I had a colleague who made a comment on this, Pierre, talking about disabilities and physical disabilities. So let's all be linked together and let's take into account all the diversities. Thank you very much and have a nice conference.